Shazam 2 opened in theaters this past weekend. And as we already talked about it last week, our out of the theater reaction, our review that we did last week, we really like this movie. I don't personally think it's quite as good as the first one, which I absolutely loved the first one. But I had a ball watching this movie. It was a lot of fun, had the charm and heart. And it had, Rob often talks about, the joy that you need to have a little bit in these movies. And both Rob and I thought they really brought the joy to the movie, all that kind of stuff. That being said, I did say on my review on Friday, I remember I was watching my review of it again, and one of the things I stopped in the middle of it and said, but make no mistake, this movie's going to tank. As much as I like it, as much as I love Zach Levi in this role, as much of a good time as I had watching the movie, and as much as this movie deserves to succeed. This is a movie that deserves to succeed. It was going to flop. Shazam! Fury of the Gods opened with $30 million. To be specific, $30.5 million for its opening weekend. $30.5 million for its opening weekend. An opening weekend to a movie, by the way, and Taylor, you can look up these numbers. The original Shazam, the first one, I believe the critic rating was in the high 80s to 90s, and the audience rating was also in the high 80s to 90s. What was the critic rating and the audience score on that first Shazam movie?
So the first Shazam, the tomato meter is 90%, and the audience score is 82%.
82%, right? 90% critics, 82% audience score. That was the first film. You would think the second one would do this, but instead it dropped like a stone in the water and completely. Remember, I'm talking about a movie here that I thought was wonderful. We're not talking about a movie that I hate. I'm not sitting here just trying to dump on a movie I didn't like. This is a movie that I think is wonderful, but there's no way to spin this. This is a disaster. And let's put it into context, shall we? Let's jump over to the classroom for a moment. How does Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods compare? Well, obviously the first one here, as we were just talking about, has made $30.5 million at the box office. Okay. Well, let's compare that to the first Shazam. The first Shazam's opening weekend was $53.5 million. Guys, this is not an insignificant thing. That is a 45% drop from a movie that people loved. That got great critic score, great audience score. It took a 45% drop from the opening weekend of the first movie. There's no way to play spin doctor on that. That's disastrous. And you can't say it was because nobody liked the first movie. Everybody liked the first movie. And they come in that. Let's look at some more. Let's look at the movies that have come out just the last couple of years. Let's look in the comic book realm of the movies that have come out the last couple of years, shall we? Okay. We'll start with Black Adam, the most recent drawn comparison. That movie opened to $67 million, more than double. Now, granted, it had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in it, and granted, it was not the beloved film that a lot of people. Some people think that maybe some of the failures of Shazam is the fact that a lot of people were underwhelmed with Black Adam. I happen to have a good time with Black Adam, but a lot of people were underwhelmed by it, and maybe the failure of Black Adam had something to do with the flopping of Shazam. Maybe yes, maybe no. Well, let's keep the comparison. Another comic book movie that opened recently, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Well, it opened to nearly 4 times as much, well over triple, $106 million. And that's not a good movie. I mean, it depends who you ask. Jonathan enjoyed it. I'm sure a lot of you guys watching the movie enjoyed it. I was disappointed by it. I didn't hate it. And I think a bunch of people were disappointed by it. That movie still opened $106 million. Another recent comparison, The Batman. Let's go back into the realm of DC. The Batman opened to $134 million. $134 million. And that's in the DC realm. Another recent one, The Eternals. One of the biggest financially disappointing films for the MCU. And that thing opened to more than double than what Shazam did. Shazam, a sequel to an original that everybody liked. And Eternals ended up making $71 million in its opening weekend. More than double, or actually exactly double, what Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods did. All right, Well, staying kind of recent, Venom 2, which not everybody's a huge fan of the Venom franchise. I myself am. I love the Venom films. F y'all, I don't care. I love these movies. I have a great time with them. But opened to triple. This sequel opened to triple what Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods did. We stay with other movies. Look at this one. This one hurts, and I'll tell you why. Black Widow, a movie that starred a character that was already dead in their cinematic universe, that was still kind of on the tail end of the pandemic era, and you want a real ouch? Was a movie that opened on streaming the same day that it came out in theaters, and it still almost made triple of what Shazam 2 did. Let me run down that laundry list again. Starred a character that was already dead in the cinematic universe, was suffering the effects of the pandemic a lot more than we are now, and was available on streaming at home the same time it was in theaters, and it still made well over double, nearly triple of what Shazam 2 did. Now we start talking about, so what did Shazam 2's opening weekend do better than any comic book movies? Yeah, there are two. One of them was the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, which opened at $26 million. But again, the first Suicide Squad movie was incredibly divisive. A lot of people did not like that movie and hate it. Despite the fact that it was financially really successful, a lot of people hated it. So it's working off that. Number two, it was still in the pandemic era. And three, like Black Widow, this was one of the movies that was available on HBO Max for free if you were an HBO Max subscriber, for free, and it still made $26 million at the box office, $4 million less than Shazam 2 did. So congratulations, Shazam 2. You made more money than the Suicide Squad, a movie that opened on HBO Max the same day that it was in theaters and was still suffering the effects of the pandemic. Another movie that Shazam 2 did better than is another DC film, sort of, Super Pets.
Aww.
Like, congratulations. He did better than Cartoon Pig. Well done. That movie, but it's still only $7 million more. Made $23 million opening weekend. So Shazam, Fury of the Gods, did a little bit better than Super Pets did. Oh, you might be thinking, John, we're missing one. We're missing a movie here. Well, to put the icing on the cake, Morbius had a better opening weekend. Yep.
That's not okay.
It's true.
How dare you?
It's real. It's true. All of it. Morbius made
It's
more
not
money
true.
opening.
That's impossible.
Morbius made more money opening weekend than Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods. Now, again, I am talking about a movie I really like, so it gives me no joy to talk about. This is a movie that should have made $90 million opening weekend. Because of how good the first one was, this is a super quality movie. When you look comparatively to other movies that have come out recently, other than maybe Black Adam, this is a movie that should have made like $90 million. We can take down the classroom now. And yet it's made $30 million. When you look at it, and now that, listen, you hear that it makes $30 million. You know that that's a bad result. But when you actually look at it in context, like, it roughly made the same amount that the Suicide Squad did, that had a very divisive first film, still suffering the effects of the pandemic, and was released on HBO Max on the same day, and it still almost made as much money as Shazam 2 Fury of the Gods. This is a movie, to me, that I think we're going to be talking about for a long time as far as the autopsy on it goes, about why did it struggle like this? Is it the fact, again, just more evidence that everybody was over the DCU that was? Was it, more after effects from the effects of Black Adam? Was it 100 other things? I mean, I don't know that we can say it's just, some people will be tempted to say it's comic book fatigue. Ant-Man and the Wasp, but not good movie, opened over $100 million at the box office. So I don't know that we can say that. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of this video, Rocket Money. The average person has around 12 paid subscriptions. Think about that. If you think you're only subscribed to a handful of services, you might want to double check. With Rocket Money, you can quickly identify and cancel all of your unwanted subscriptions. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want and don't even use. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as the click of a button. My wife Ann and I moved out of Burbank 2 years ago, and one of the first things I discovered when I loaded up Rocket Money was that I was still paying for a gym membership I haven't even been to in Burbank in 2 years. So stop throwing away your money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea. rocketmoney.com/Campea. So I don't know, Chris, let's go over to you on this. Shazam, we've been watching the tracking numbers for Shazam fall more and more and more leading up to the release date. I think it finally ended, the tracking ended at 35 to 40 million opening weekend, which already would have been a tremendous disappointment.
Yeah.
It made even under the low tracking at 30.5, 45% less than the first Shazam movie did, only higher than the Suicide Squad and Super Pets in recent memory. I don't know. What do you make of all this and what's your analysis?
Still reeling over Morbius. Whew. I mean, I know you've disagreed about this in the past, but I really do think it's, well, what's the point? Why am I going to go spend my hard-earned dollar at a movie that doesn't matter? And I know, like, no movie has to mean anything, or why do you make anything? But I think our general movie-going audience just goes, well, aren't they just scrapping all of this anyway?
I don't think the general movie-going audience even knows what's going on with DC.
They might not, but I think a lot of people just aren't interested in this at all. I think people who are into the comic books are kind of that mindset right now, because clearly a lot of them did not show up, of, I'll catch the next phase, I'll catch the next thing. And I think, too, a lot of the marketing just didn't sell a lot of people, which is a shame because it's a super, super fun movie. It's really, really great. Helen Mirren, come on, guys, go out there and see her. But I think that a lot of people just didn't care about this. And maybe your average moviegoer doesn't know about all the minutia, but I think the average person, because of things like Instagram, like TikTok, they do at least know a lot of these stars aren't moving forward. So Gal Gadot being in a movie isn't going to move the needle for them, right? Even if they love her, it's going to be some meaningless cameo. And if you do know about these movies, if you do know about the comic books and all the other back, production stuff that's going on, why are you going to go see it? If you have to go see other movies, if you have to really work on a budget and decide what you're going to go spend your money on, why are you going to go see this movie if it's kind of obsolete in terms of seeing that grander DC kind of thing? Now, I'm not one of those people, but I do think that has to be factored into this when you look at it.
I don't know, because if it were, that doesn't explain what happened to Black Adam. Because going into Black Adam, they hadn't announced that they were resetting the DCU. People thought Henry Cavill was now back in the DCU. It was still, when Black Adam opened, it was still, he was the biggest movie star in the world. This is going to change the, what was it? The hierarchy of power.
The hierarchy of power.
Changing the hierarchy of power in the DC.
And it did, just in the inverse.
Yes,
of what
just
the Rock
opposite.
wanted.
It was opposite land.
We
It was
inverted the pyramid of success.
Mr. Mixelplex came and got his hands on it.
Yeah.
So, everybody thought this is still DC, and that movie fell on its face despite being promoted for well over a year and having the world's biggest movie star in it. So I don't know that had anything to do with it, to be honest with you.
Oh, no. I think you got to look at it as a potential factor.
Maybe. I mean, but I think that's the key, right? I don't know that there's one thing. I think that at the end of the day, there's probably going to be a 5 or 6 different things that went into this. Maybe part of it was the failure of Black Adam. Part of it is people are just over the DCEU the way it was.
Yeah.
People just think kind of the DCEU itself was kind of irrelevant. Maybe part of it was, well, this doesn't have any ongoing story. My argument always to that is, well, neither does Goodfellas. Should people not go and watch? Are people not going to watch Goodfellas? I don't know.
But we do have a different expectation.
Yes,
right?
There are different expectations, but you put on top of that, I just don't know that my mom doesn't know anything that's going on with DC or anything like that. But again, it's the Black Adam
Neither
part.
Does mine. She doesn't watch this. It's sad.
So, I mean, I think it's going to end at the end of the day. I think that's going to be a factor. I think there's going to be about, I don't think there's one smoking gun.
It's a death of 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. And it sucks because this is a movie you want to see when creative people get together and they actually end up putting together something that is really good. And this movie was really good. And it's always sad to see a movie not do well at all, especially when it's a movie that deserved better. And this was a movie that deserved better, but make no mistake, this is a flop. Now, going back to something that one of our hotline questions came in asking, how big of a second weekend drop do you think this will have? Here's the thing. Remember, we always talk about the fact when you have a movie that opens to like $140 million, you can, or more, you can expect a slightly larger than normal second weekend drop off because everybody's seen it. The opposite, you have the opportunity to have the opposite be true here. Because so few people went to go see this opening weekend, and hopefully those people will hear it's actually pretty good, I don't suspect this is going to have a big second weekend drop off. I expect to see like a slightly better than normal, like 50% drop. I don't expect to see like a 60% drop off, 65% drop off. Like what was Ant-Man's second weekend drop off? Like 70?
70.
Like a 70? Like I don't think it's going to have that kind of drop off. Number one, because still there's still a ton of people that haven't seen it. And I think the word of mouth is going to be fairly solid. So I think it's going to have an okay second weekend.
I hope so.
Oh, I hope so.
I really just hope it kind of finds its legs, and at least people give this movie a chance. Because I think going into the first Shazam too, right? He's not a character that I feel a lot of people usually give a lot of credit to.
It's true. Yep.
And that movie, I think a lot of people slept on too because, oh, this is such a kiddie thing, yada, yada, yada. And it proved to be such a great movie with so much heart and really fun action sequences and a really great cast that just gels so well. So I hope that people give this sequel a chance too, because it's a fun time.
Guys, the question is for you. Whew! Shazam 2 came out of the blocks and fell straight on its face financially. It's unfortunate because I think it's a pretty darn good movie, and yet it just completely flopped so far. We'll see what kind of legs it can have. Did you see the movie? Odds are you probably didn't, but maybe you did. If so, what did you think of it? If you had to come up with some explanations about why it did so damn poorly, what do you think that would be? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts.